From vinyl music sounds to lively verbal go-arounds.
This is Into the Runout.
Welcome, viewers, listeners, to this week's Into the Runout podcast. I'm Anthony.
I'm John.
And we welcome.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome. Another fun week of lively music sounds, or final music sounds to lively verbal go-arounds.
Vinyl, cassette, CD.
Yeah, absolutely.
MP3, streaming, whatever you want.
Yeah, whatever you want. Whatever fits your fancy.
Yeah.
So how's your week been, my friend?
It's been busy. Good week. Didn't do too much worth mentioning. No fun. A lot of work. But hey, you got to work to have play, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to do both.
But business is booming on my end. That's good. You know, this isn't either one of our day jobs. So
right.
we both have other things to do with our lives.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
We definitely enjoy doing this, but
without a doubt.
Got to get busy every once in a while, so that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to talk about a special favorite band of ours.
Yes.
Has a little history with us because that's when we used to listen to some of these records. I remember in my basement specifically, Tony would tell me all the details about how these songs came together and, different versions of the songs, giving me insight that I hadn't had prior to. So we're going to be talking about Queen today.
Yes, absolutely. The four boys from Europe, Freddie Mercury, of course, being the iconic one. And, certainly, and again, I give props to the world of the web that has, uploaded so much of Freddie and Queen's, lives and career on YouTube. There are a plethora of great documentaries that chronicle the career of Queen and all the ins and outs of their lives and Freddie's life. He came from the country of Zanzibar, where his parents were diplomats, and then war broke out and they were forced to relocate to England, where Freddie ultimately stumbled upon the guys who were in this other band, and the beginnings were set in, for Freddie to jump into this band, and ultimately the naming of the band Queen, and all of the neat little, happenstance, head scratching, what seemed like coincidences that, gave them the opportunity to record and break types of musical, firsts, not since the days of Hey Jude, where Queen was able to put out a song, one of their trademark songs that went, 7 minutes? Bohemian Rhapsody.
Well,
so, which appropriately...
It's a Rhapsody.
The Rhapsody, for sure. And, of course, the wonderful movie that was made about, what has it been, about 7 years now, that did a really adequately decent job chronicling their lives, with some liberties taken to the timeline and some of the truths, the full truths of the Queen's story, but did enough justice to their story and gave the band its much needed cinematic due.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. The movie with Rami. You're speaking of Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yes, Rami Malek.
Rami Malek. I think he did a great job.
Oh, he did.
Really portrayed him visually, and the musical performance was great. The artist who actually did the singing for that and the piano playing slips my mind, but he has a lot of YouTube videos. Impeccable impersonation of Freddie Mercury.
Yeah. And Rami too, just his ability to embody kind of like the way,
presence.
Yeah.
Right.
The way Austin Butler embodied the essence of Elvis, Rami Malek, without a doubt, did Freddie Mercury. And I remember reading a little snippet of him, being initially really intimidated by being Freddie Mercury. But then he realized, but wait, I'm not necessarily doing Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury's name is Farouk Balsara. And so because he took it from a human element, it kind of freed him up and gave him the daring to step into that persona, which Farouk ultimately did. I mean, he created Freddie Mercury from head to toe. The strut, the movements, the gestures, the singing, the over the top theatrics. I mean, I mean, show business can bring the best and worst out of people, but there's no question musically, Farouk brought the very best of himself out in Freddie Mercury, and there will never be another artist like him ever in the history of music.
Yeah, look up Mark Martel, Marc Martel. He is the singer who is known for his resemblance to Freddie Mercury's voice, and does an impeccable job. And you can find him on YouTube. Take a peek. Okay, so before we get on to more details, big picture, what do you think made the band, and then we'll come back in,
Yeah,
but what do you think made the band stand out from other bands in the 70s and on into the 80s?
I think it was I personally think it was because they just demonstrated incredible music versatility, and a lot of that had to do with the unique dynamic that all the members of the band were, because beside Freddie Mercury, of course, was this extremely intelligent, articulate, just dynamic artist in Brian May, who,
Right.
brought not only his skill to the guitar, but he was head smart too. So he had this just dynamic, beautiful mind, if you could say, that brought a musical element to the band that was so just unique. I mean, Brian's guitar playing and his musical sensibilities and
Yeah.
even his wonderful sweet voice just added something. And then of course Roger Taylor's just impeccable drumming, just so tight and so also melodic at the same time. And then you get the quietest member of the band, but ultimately based on just his bass playing, John Deacon. I mean, talk about bringing the bottom of the groove to so many of those Queen songs. And so you put those four unique men together and you give them freedom to explore the nuances of music, whether it's rock, whether it's maybe a little gospely or a little bluesy or a little opera. I mean, you just have this versatility that they explored, and because they had a love for music, they were able to explore those genres and harness them in and create something that was totally unique and totally had never been heard of before.
Yeah, I think with Freddie Mercury's voice and the musicians behind him, I think they were able to take the liberty of exploring and trying different things that, other bands would have been completely outed and ousted for, and nobody would ever touch their stuff again. I think Queen was able to command that and do a really good job and, evolve throughout the years doing different things.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you take a song like, Cold Stone Crazy. I mean,
Right.
at Freddie Mercury's memorial concert, Metallica got up there and just
Yeah.
did a killer, you know,
Yep.
killer version of it. And I mean, that was Queen demonstrating, this penchant for something more than just rock and roll. They were playing, a sped up version of it in that song. But then you get something as, just groovy as Killer Queen, and something as over the top in various sections as Bohemian Rhapsody to, I mean, just incredible versatility.
So what do you have to say for the different type of Queen fans, the ones that are like us and maybe even a little bit older than us that grew up with Queen, and then the ones that first were introduced to Queen with Wayne's World?
Yeah, when I think of my experiences of being first exposed to Queen, I think we can both say possibly that it was kind of around that 1980s time, because that's when Queen kind of broke through on in the mainstream. And I mean, I remember going to skating parties at the age of 8 in 1980, and they were playing Crazy Little Thing Called Love, I'm going around the rink just grooving
Were
to
you
it.
a were you a good skater?
I was able to skate most of the night without falling on my rear end a whole lot of times, but I was never one of those, "Oh, let's go
They were
backwards."
like, "Oh, look at Tony showing off on the skate
No,
rink,
no,
going
no.
backwards and
I was
got
I
the one
was
leg up."
I was fortunate that I could do it good on two feet. Yeah, I never it's like, "Oh my goodness." Yeah.
Yeah, I was a hang on to the handrail and run into the wall kind of guy.
Oh,
That's how I
no.
stopped. Just you just hit the wall, you're done.
I mean, I probably hit the wall a couple of times, but I was able to somewhat slow it and not, like, crash, but yeah, there were moments, but yeah. But yeah, I think about, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and of course, Another One Bites the Dust. Oh my goodness. I mean, you know,
Do-do-do.
uh, do
Yep.
do. I mean, that funky, and with Crazy Little Thing Called Love, you had this kind of homage to rock and roll, Elvis Presley, and Freddie had that thing going on. And as we think about versatility, now you've got John Deacon laying down one of the funkiest bass lines ever. I mean, it transcended pop and went into urban R&B, the charts.
Professional
Everybody's dig
wrestling.
professional wrestling. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yep.
the Junkyard Dog. I mean, when you would hear Another One Bites the Dust over the sound system, okay, here comes Howard Finkel, from Charlotte, North Carolina, the Junkyard Dog. It's like, here we go. He's coming
I know.
down with the chain,
Yeah.
and Another One Bites the Dust, and you're rocking, you're juking,
That's when Queen knew they made it too. It's
right?
not when they signed the contract. It's not when they got the big check. It's when JYD played their music coming
Yeah,
down the
started
ring,
Mid-South and into the
coming down the
WWF.
aisle.
Absolutely. But
Yeah.
yeah, so you had that era, and then, and as I started to explore my own musical interests beyond what I had in my collection, one of my early purchases was this Queen cassette that was from K-Tel. It wasn't like the greatest hits one with the
Yep.
black cover of
Good
them
old
looking all.
K-Tel.
Yeah, so it had like 4 little shots, and it was covered like 15 of their songs. So that was where I learned about the Queen catalog. So I learned about Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time. I learned Play the Game. I learned Under Pressure. So I had that. But then I didn't hear anything from Queen until, because I missed the mid 80 years, and it wasn't until they came back around in 1989 with the Miracle that I suddenly was like, oh wow, Queen's back. So I went to the store and bought the Miracle and was digging that. And then Innuendo came out. And before you know it, it was like Innuendo's out and you hear one song. Meanwhile, they've released like 4 or 5 of the songs in Britain, but not too much in the States. And then all of a sudden, Freddie's dead. It's like,
Right.
what?
Yeah, for some reason they had a hard time, I wouldn't say breaking into the United States, but maintaining that hold
Yeah.
until the advent of, MTV kind of helped out a little bit in the 80s.
Yeah, it did.
A
And
little
then
bit, not as much as other artists, but they did help a little bit in the United States for Queen.
Yeah, it did, and then no sooner did it help them, it ultimately hurt them, because when they did that over the top video of "I Want to Break Free," which was a parody of a sitcom in England, in which the band took on the, shall we say, the wardrobe of the individuals in the show, which took on the other sex. It
And they
spurred a
came out of the
whole.
closet with the vacuum cleaner.
I mean, we certainly know the over the top,
Oh,
flamboyant person that Freddie was, and he was certainly totally in his own skin, thrilled and happy to be strutting across the floor
oh.
with the vacuum cleaner. But
He wasn't the first to be
no,
experimental with that. Many people did it before him. I think
absolutely.
maybe in that instance, the British are really proud of their comedy, and their comedy is slightly different than ours at times, and maybe
Yes.
people just in the United States couldn't, relate to it as much.
No, they
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 didn't see the
couldn't.
sense of humor.
They couldn't, and the censors
Yeah.
shot up, and the video got definitely banned by some, shall we say, too tight in the collars, and the band was a little put off by that, and then at that point, I think Freddie kind of bucked and said, "Well, forget America," and the band never came back and toured America at a certain point, and which unfortunately for American fans. But it's funny because you were saying how it was hard for them to break in here in America. We have our own bands, and I think Queen being one from England, certain bands, no doubt, mass appeal. The Beatles, the Stones, but Queen was one of those bands that kind of had a mixture of reaction, I think. People were certainly not as in love with Queen as, say, their home country. I mean, and that was most certainly dialed in and totally, evident when they did the 20-minute set at Live Aid, which we've, made reference to more than once. I mean, when they took the stage, Wembley Stadium was just rocking. I mean, I don't know if there was a 20-minute set in the history of that stadium that took the kind of fever-pitched intensity and joy and unison than that Live Aid sets.
Yeah, and I have a friend over in the UK that was able to see that Live Aid performance. Didn't get a chance to talk to him in too much detail about it, but obviously I don't know if he even remembers much about it because I'm sure he partook in a little bit of alcohol,
Yeah, a little bit
as
of
did many of them.
little bit of a beverage.
Yeah, and I'm not watching that back not too long ago, a month or two ago. I'm not sure how anybody went to the bathroom.
Wow, right?
Especially the ones down on the pitch, which is,
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I
there
don't
was
know.
no room to even stretch your elbows, let alone I'll be
Yeah,
right back, hold my spot kind of
hold
thing.
my
That
spot,
wasn't
right?
happening.
Yeah, that's a I never thought of that before, but now that you
Right.
mention it, it's like, yeah, how do
Well, that's things you think of when you get older. You're like, how am I going to get to the bathroom?
yeah, especially at our age. I mean, before we recorded, I'm like, hey John, hold the thought there. You
Well,
know?
and then when you get a little older than us, then you don't worry about it again because you just wear Depends and you're fine.
Yeah. Depends on what you wear. This bathroom humor has been brought to you by Into the Runout. Ah, but
We're
yes,
working on our Depends sponsorship.
there you go. For the geriatric generation, we're up for endorsements,
I'm wearing them now.
right?
I forgot I had them on. I'm so comfortable.
Right?
You're going to need some if you keep laughing.
Oh my God, right? Oh, that's good stuff. So yeah, so back to Queen. A bathroom break done. We'll go back now to Queen. But yeah, so the journey of Queen started about 1980, and hasn't stopped, thank God. Like in the 90s, I started to become aware of, the release of their songs on their albums on CD, and finally obtained a whole lot of copies for my own personal collection. And, so it's great to have their musical library.
Yeah, I'm slowly building mine. I started out with, as you know, the greatest hits,
Oh yeah.
1 and 2. What was it? Like a dark purple or blue and then a burgundy color, 1 and
Yeah,
2.
well, the
And
blue one, if you remember, because we listened to that one back in high school. That was classic Queen,
yes,
which
classic Queen.
I loved classic Queen because it really, really kind of gave a unique kind of exploration into a variety of their songs. It didn't follow the template of necessarily
Mhm.
greater hits. There were some deeper tracks in there, tracks that one may not necessarily know as much about. If
Right.
if you were just, familiar with the greatest hits Queen. I always, and still do to this day, love that CD.
And now I'm starting to build my vinyl collection, and I've got a few behind me. If you can see them, make them out in the picture behind me.
Oh, is that the night at the opera?
It sure is.
Hey.
Sure is. So discography, Queen discography. I'm going to rattle off what they have out to offer in order. So we're
Yes.
starting in 1973. We have the original Queen album. Then we have
Yep.
Queen 2, Sheer Heart Attack, and then A Night at the Opera.
Yep.
Date the Races, News of the World, which I have back there, Jazz, live album, The Game.
Yep.
Ooh, we've got Flash Gordon,
Ah, yes.
Hot Hot Space. Then you got The Works, Kind of Magic, The Miracle, Innuendo, Made in Heaven. Nice, nice one. Um, a lot of live albums.
Oh, yeah, they've had a massive amount of live albums.
Yeah. And amazing live performances too, if you haven't heard any of them. And as you mentioned, not many of us here on the other side of the pond have seen them because, they chose to tour elsewhere and a lot of interesting places, to put it at that. Um, so you want to talk about the original album? You want to start there and kind of go down a little bit and just highlight?
Yeah, I mean, the original album certainly was, was the band's opportunity to get into the studio and do some good work, and they did some really good work. I mean, it was a gold album, and it produced a couple of songs that Queen aficionados would love and appreciate. That were like they never made the charts, but they certainly were indelible to their beginnings. You had "Keep Yourself Alive," which you know there's a fabulous guitar solo in the midst of that song that's solid. And
The guitar at the beginning is not too shabby either.
oh no, not at all. It's a great.
It's a
Yeah,
great way to start.
yeah. I mean, you certainly have the band showcasing their talents right out of the gate. And then the additional song "Liar," that's another great song. And there's just some really really good content in that first album. Again, no chart breakers, no chart sensations, but you can see a band that is certainly separating themselves from their contemporaries.
And looking at the song list on that first album, I feel like, and I don't know who, if it's even true, but I don't know who spent the time organizing those songs, but I feel like it was very purposeful in how those tracks were laid out. Cause I mean, that's a great, Keep Yourself Alive is a great way to start it. And Seven Seas Arise is an
Oh,
amazing way to
that's
end that album.
oh, absolutely. But yeah, then we move into Queen 2, and that actually reached silver certification, and was a continuation of you know the band's exploring into you know building their identity and going and performing and touring around the UK, still searching for a hit. It did go Seven Seas of Rye reached number 10 in the UK, so it was the band's first foray into the top 10, so it showed signs of things to come. Then we move into the year 1974, and we get the second album, which finally breaks into the certification silver album and gives Queen their first top 10 UK single, Seven Seas of Rye,
Yes.
which was, a continuation of Queen's unique sound. They were, you know, musically, it's just unique as far as what they were putting down and Freddie's growth as a singer. Then we get to the album that put them definitely on the map, and that, of course, was Sheer
Sheer Heart
Heart
Attack.
Attack, which,
Heart Attack.
interestingly
Heck,
enough,
heck.
doesn't feature the song Sheer Heart Attack. It came later, but great album cover and a great album that included, of course, the breakthrough song Killer Queen.
That's such a different song, isn't it?
Mhm.
I wish we could play a clip right now, but we're going to put it on our Spotify playlist so everyone can sing along, snap along, whatever you want to do. Yeah, it's a great, unique song for sure.
Yeah,
I didn't hear that song until later on also.
right.
Obviously not when it came out, but definitely a catchy tune and became one of my favorites instantly.
Oh, absolutely. Yep, it reached number 2 in the UK and broke the American charts at number 12.
Is this the first song to ever mention Marie Antoinette?
Ooh, that's a good question. Yeah,
Trivia.
I mean, there may not be a Marie Antoinette
I mean,
reference. Marie Antoinette.
who thinks to work that into lyrics? I mean, that's
That's genius. That's Freddie Mercury. And there's a little bit of a risque naughty story that supposedly is the inspiration behind that song. That Freddie apparently had some designs on a certain person who didn't seem to feel the same, and so the song is supposedly written about that person. Don't know how true the legend is, but that's one of the backgrounds of that unique little song.
Any other standouts on the album? I think there is one. I've got one of my favorite Queen songs on there, but Now I'm Here is amazing.
Oh yeah. Yep, number 11 in the UK charts. Didn't break America, but, you know, it was giving Queen more visibility. And yeah, once again, Queen showing their just their ability to just rock and
And you could tell they're getting comfortable in the studio too.
oh, without a doubt.
Yeah, especially on that track. You can get the first taste of it.
Yeah. And I think because they're now starting to get more confident in the studio, now they've secured their first almost number one single in the UK. It's laying the groundwork for what would become the band's signature, song, and certainly the album that blew up the band, not only in the UK but America and around the world. And that, of course, that song is
Bohemian Rhapsody.
yeah. And what's the album, John? We made reference to it earlier.
Oh, it's back there.
Yeah.
Night at the Opera.
Oh,
What an opera it was.
yeah. I mean, trying to, you know, create a song with that type of nuance and the movements and the vocals and everything and going against the grain and standing their ground and thinking that the music industry and the record company and the airwaves and yet they just shattered. They shattered
Yeah.
all the rules, broke the rules, made new ones, and it turned into this juggernaut in the UK, top 10 in the United States. And it gave Queen that audience where, yeah, it went number one in Australia, in Belgium, in Canada, in Ireland, in Newfoundland, and top 10 in several other countries. Just, Queen's magnum opus.
Nice. And how did I'm in Love with My Car do?
Hmm. Well, maybe
They
to the
brought
s- maybe to the hardcore Queen fans, they depending on what car we're talking about.
So I wonder how much truth there was, if you remember in the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, when Mike Myers was playing I think it was wasn't the manager, was the producer. I'm not, or the album head. I can't remember it now. It's slipping me, but I don't know if you remember that scene. But they had Mike Myers, from Wayne's World,
Yeah.
ironically playing that guy, and he wanted to see "I'm in Love with My Car" being the first single off
Oh,
that album, and they kind of had a little tiff in the office about it. And of course, Freddie threw a fit. But I wonder how much truth there was to that in real life.
I don't know. Be interesting. But yeah, I don't know why anybody would think that would be, a good idea for the first track. Considering You're My Best Friend would certainly be, if it wasn't from Bohemian Rhapsody, You're My Best Friend may not have been as
Mhm.
recognizable.
And I think there was I forget the quote. Also, he finished it off by saying about "I'm in love with my car," saying, it's something I can really see the kids, banging their heads to, referring to the car scene in Wayne's World
Oh, jeez.
when they're doing the head bang for
Right?
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah, well,
Funny moment. Funny moment.
yeah, but I mean, you could certainly say when that guitar riff comes blazing through, you
Mhm.
know, you have to fight off the temptation sometimes, depending what mood you're in.
Yep. And the versatility, "Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon's" another song on there that kind of goes a different direction and kind of shows, different things that they can do.
Without a doubt.
So then you move on to "Day at the Races,"
Yeah.
another classic album.
Yes, A Day at the Races, which
You've
gave
got
us
"Tie Your Mother Down."
yep,
That's another rockin' song.
yeah,
"Somebody to Love."
yeah, which to me, I mean, wow. Just once again, where you get that blended harmony that was certainly, evident in You're My Best Friend. And, just that where Freddie's voice just joins with all the other harmony voices, and you just get that signature Queen sound.
I think they kept the momentum going. I mean, it's hard to top Bohemian Rhapsody,
Yes.
but the momentum sure kept going with A Day at the Races.
Yeah, and Somebody to Love, just missing number one in the UK and respectable 13 on the US charts. You're My Best Friend from Night of the Opera went 16 in the US charts. So Queen is also maintaining their visibility now on the charts in
Yes.
in the United States, one song top 10, two songs top 20. So the American market is certainly learning more about Queen, and Queen, of course, now is coming over to America and performing in America,
Yep.
performing with Kansas. So they're getting an opportunity now to see this incredible band and two incredible bands on one bill. Could you imagine? Could we go
Right.
back in the time machine, please? I'd like a ticket to Queen and Kansas.
Yep.
I'll
And
take that ticket.
76, you're getting into the heart of what we now know as, classic rock. So American radio especially wants that heavy guitar, heavy drum, those rockers, and Queen's starting to figure that out, or at least putting a couple more songs out there for the American market, trying to tap in a little further.
Yes. So then we get beyond Day of the Races, and then we get to an album which gives the band a whole new exposure.
Oh yeah,
And
some
that,
definite hits on this one.
yes, and that album is, of course,
News of the World, right
yes,
behind me, right here.
there you go. And of course, the one, the two songs, two different songs kind of merged into one.
Of course, We Will Rock You and We Are the Champions. Those songs go hand in hand.
Oh, they do.
Unless of course you're at a basketball game or a sports game and you hear the infamous beat to We Will Rock You and
Yes.
they just loop that. But otherwise, if you hear it on the radio, you hear both those together, and there's really no other way to listen to them.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. I think they were meant to go together. They just, and I mean, that's always how the band did them in concert.
And then you move on to a song they forgot to put on the Sheer Heart Attack album.
Oh,
Sheer Heart
yes.
Attack.
Sheer Heart Attack.
They're like, oops, we forgot. Let's put it on here.
Yeah. So it's interesting. You got Stone Cold Crazy, which is this revved up rocker, just absolutely just in your face, Queen, taking a whole different musical style and just revving it up. But Sheer Heart Attack kind of follows in that vein. And like you said, finally the song,
Uh-huh.
but on the different album. But once again, the same kind of high intensity, Queen showing incredible versatility, giving us something to listen to that was really, really solid.
I mean, you can go down the whole list. I think every song on here is uh is a good song. Some are definitely front runners, but All Dead is a great song. Spread Your Wings.
Yeah, Spread Your Wings,
Um,
34 in the UK charted.
yep.
We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions, number 2 in the UK, 4 in the States. So once again, the Queen for the second time breaking the top 10.
Yep. And then I think at this stage of when you've put out what are we on, the fifth album now? Fifth album?
Yeah.
I think at this stage of a band's career, this is where you start to develop super fans and separate them from the run of the mill A-side radio track fans. And I think you have to really appreciate the band and their efforts and what they've already given you at this point in 1977, and to be able to appreciate every track, every song that they put out. And I think when I listen and look back at this, being a big Queen fan, I can appreciate every song on this album.
Yeah, it's a band really finding their groove, finding their rhythm, settling into what is obviously now okay. We've made it. We
Yep.
we broke the charts in both countries and around the world with Bohemian Rhapsody. Now they've found a whole new anthem that now they can kind of close their show with, and that of course became more obvious toward the end where, they closed out the Live Aid performance, closed out all of their performances on the last tour. It turned out to be the ultimate showstopper. Part in the pun, part the play on words, but definitely the showstopper. It left the fans yearning and wanting more, and that really was Brian May's heart for the band too. He said we were all about making contact and reaching the
Exactly.
people, leaving them gasping, longing for more. He made that point so clear in an interview, and I mean that's really. I mean, I think any musician that gets up on a stage and offers their art for the listening audience, that's they don't just put it out there just to say, okay, this is me. Here's my art. Like it if you want. No, I'm up here. I'm giving you something that I think you're going to want to partake of.
Yeah, you would think that seeing someone like Freddie Mercury might give you the impression that he's full of himself, but really they put themselves out there every time they perform live on every album. And when they perform live, like a lot of bands and musicians you see nowadays, they'll go out there, they'll do their 2 hours, and then they go off the stage and they don't want to be bothered with you again. And these guys, truly wanted you to come back out and see them and support them and their music and just have fun together.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that was really Freddie's attitude in the interviews. He really was just wanting to go out and just have fun out there on the
Yeah, and
stage.
and
And
as you see in a lot of his live performances, also he's really big into crowd participation during songs too. I mean, some iconic crowd participation moments.
oh, well, yeah. I mean, in the Live Aid performance, which, we'll touch on later, I mean, when he's up there, getting that audience in Wembley Stadium in unison with Radio Gaga,
Hmm.
you have a man up there just reaching out his hands, and you've got
Yeah,
90,000 just in unison. The man
and
had
Deo.
Dale,
Yep.
absolutely. The whole stadium and singing along Bohemian Rhapsody, singing along and We Are the Champions. He had those fans in the palm of his hand, but it wasn't to say, well, look at me, how great I am. No, it's like, you got
Mhm.
me, I got you, and we're just having a ball together doing this. And
Exactly.
that's really where you can honestly say somebody has a good command of their art because they're not letting that art consume them. They're recognizing the beauty of it, the purpose of it. It's all about mutual enjoyment. I
Mm,
enjoy you, you enjoy me. We may never meet, but you'll get the sense of who I am based on what I'm communicating to you in song. And in that, you'll be able to find something that you can take a hold of, that you can run with, apply to your life, find inspiration, motivate you to think outside the bounds of your own, creative mind. And
exactly.
and we talked about that the first week, when we talked about the power of music and what it does and why we are moved by it and why it ultimately helps define us. But when you get a band that good, and they know they're that good because the proof's in the pudding, the proof's in the numbers, the proof's in the chart, the proof's in the success.
And the proof continues because, I mean, the band is still legendary decades after Freddie Mercury's passing. The band lives on, and the music lives on, as they say.
Yeah. And and yet, when we move on to the next album, Jazz, Freddie's saying, "Don't stop me now. I'm
Don't,
having I'm having such a good time."
don't stop me now.
Which, didn't make a big crash in America, but in the UK gave the band another top 10 song the into the charts of the UK. But one of those songs that I didn't hear until years later because it's like that initial cassette didn't have Don't Stop Me Now on it. But as I explored the Queen catalog in later years, I stumbled upon that song and I was like, "Whoa."
Yeah, it's a great song, and the album has a couple other great songs on it too. Fat Bottom Girls, Bicycle Race. Just two and iconic songs that continue to live on. And every time you hear them on on whatever streaming service you listen to stream, or even on the radio still. Every time those songs come on, you got to turn it up a little bit.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, yeah, Bicycle Race, once again, the use of that incredible, blend of harmonious vocals,
Uh-huh.
giving us once again that signature Queen sound.
And
And
who played the bicycle bell in the song? Who do we know
I
that?
don't know who we can attribute that to.
Another trivia question.
Another
We
trivia
got to write. I
question.
got to write this down.
Hey,
I'm going to do my own.
they may have just got a young little, kid from the UK to come on in and, bring his bike into the studio and maybe, just ring it away. Who knows? I
Who
mean,
knows?
the band was certainly creative. I wouldn't surprise them if they went and did something like that. But
Yes.
yeah, but again, and the lyrics too. I mean, I think it was very witty that they would throw some references into some American movies right in the beginning of that song. Jaws was never my scene. I don't like Star Wars. Don't know who wrote that lyric, but it's like, okay, all right, so that's not so okay, if that's not what you like, if that's not your scene, what do you want? And then he's like, okay, I'm gonna tell you what I want.
Just wants to ride his bicycle.
Yeah. Where he likes. But I mean, the piano in Don't Stop Me Now is especially just catchy. And then when it rolls into Brian May's blistering guitar solo, whoa, it's like, and then ending with Freddie's just soaring voice to end that song. You can hear it just going, I don't know, whoa. You just get swept right out of that song with him right on the wings of his soaring
Yep.
voice. I mean, so it starts with this piano introduction and ends with his soaring voice closing out. I mean, can you get much better with a song? The end of Bohemian Rhapsody with the sound of the gong, pretty awesome. But and that's the thing. I love how Queen also finds unique ways to kind of end a lot of their songs. Sound of a gong, a voice kind of soaring.
Yeah. That's doing something different, trying to invent something new, trying to be fresh, just having fun, having fun.
Yeah, I mean, and as they're getting now to the end of the 1970s, it's really obvious that this is a band that is, they're on the verge of even greater possibilities. I am remiss once again to call myself out as I did in the previous podcast for another snub of the week. We were talking about Queen with Bohemian Rhapsody, and Tony forgot to mention a very, very, very critical thing that took place. Queen was actually the early purveyor of the music video.
Oh, yes. Little do people know.
Yeah, because up to that point, no artist had attempted to do anything apart from footage of a band playing live, and Queen
Right.
actually took the effort to do something in the form of just a departure from just the straight performance.
Right.
And it turned out to be kind of a groundbreaking moment where eventually the idea was kind of captured by others and it ran into what ultimately became the phenomenon of, what we now know as
The
music
music video.
videos.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
if you think before that, I could think of older songs put to motion picture, but not
Yeah.
intentionally for a music video. So maybe
Right.
for part of a movie, or maybe
Yeah.
a live recording from like Top of the Pops or something like that.
Yeah.
But not an intentional attempt at a music video as we know it. Glad you remembered, because that's an important fact.
Yeah. And again, it speaks again of the band's, just their creative, flow. They really, really have that they really were tapping into some amazing creativity in that decade.
Yep.
And Bohemian Rhapsody was just the band ready to break out, and boy, did they.
They did. They did. Queen was, a simplistic band at the core, but very, very complex, complicated, and
Yes.
very thoughtful on the as a whole, I guess
Oh,
you should say.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, so now the band goes into the 1980s, and boy, do they go to a whole nother level with their first offering
Hmm.
in 1980. It was really the album and the songs that introduced me personally to Queen. And of course, that album is The Game.
It's right behind me.
Hey, I see it. Yes, but
Amazing,
yeah,
amazing songs on that album.
absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Crazy Little Thing Called Love, certainly an homage,
Yep.
a kind of just an homage to Elvis, rock and roll, that groovy kind of rock and roll, rockabilly feel, but yet done with great musicianship and great, musical sensibility.
Yeah, another iconic and defining song for the band.
Absolutely. And of course, on that album too, the song that broke not only ground in the market of Billboard popular music, but it went into all kinds of genres. It hit the funk, it hit the R&B,
Yep.
it transcended the market. And then of course that was of course the funky, groovy,
Bass.
oh my goodness, another one bites the dust.
Yeah.
John Deacon gives us the bass line for the ages.
I dare you to stay in your seat when you put that song on. You got to at least tap your
Absolutely.
toes, at least tap your
Oh,
foot or something.
absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a toe
I mean,
tapper.
oh yeah. And I mean, for anybody who, likes to play, you know, air bass guitar, I
Yeah, it's a
mean,
good one to learn, air bass.
yeah. And I mean, it jumps right in. I mean, boom,
Yep.
you're right into it, and you are being swept into this musical experience. And Freddie, again, his versatility to go from sounding kind of Elvis like to now sounding like, a funk master
Mm-hmm.
in just one song. It just shows you the musical versatility and talent that Freddie Mercury possessed. It just covered so much ground.
And I know there's a bunch of gems on this album, but I'd like to skip ahead, and we can come back if you want. But one of my favorite songs on this album is the last tracks. I think it's the last track, "Save Me."
Oh yeah,
I mean,
fabulous.
it's just a great song. And it's not, it wasn't a. And you might have the stats in front of you. It wasn't number one, taking over the radio wave song when it was
No,
out, but in my book, it belongs up there with the rest of them.
yeah, it went top 10 in Ireland and Newfoundland, and it reached number 11 in the UK. Didn't chart in the States, so I
Yeah,
think after Play the Game, they kind of
yeah.
exhausted their
Once again,
releases.
once again, getting snubbed in the U.S., but that's okay.
Yeah, but that's
We
okay.
talked about that earlier.
But yeah, but overall, 4 songs released, but there's also a song that we had talked about a little while back that you, I think, might have posted somewhere recently. But there's a song on The Game which I heard only just a handful of years ago for the first time, where I actually listened to it up close. And that, of course, is this amazing, funky, just groovy song called Dragon Attack.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, it's just that whole groove carries the whole song.
Yep.
And Freddie again, edgy and just, just bringing you right into the whole purpose of the song. Brian May's guitar work, absolutely tight. The rhythm that Roger's keeping with the song, just that groove that John Deacon's laying down underneath. I mean, just, it's one of those, unheralded Queen classics. But for those of us who
Yeah.
appreciate the deep tracks, we love it.
Yeah, and once again, we'll have all the songs we're speaking of on our Spotify and YouTube playlists, so people can listen along and see how close Tony's rendition was to Dragon Attack. And then you can tell us which one you like better, Tony's or Queen's.
Well, I sure hope they like Queen. I mean, if anybody prefers me, okay, you can join my fan club. I'll send you out a personalized newsletter.
You have a fan club? We gotta post that on the website.
Oh yeah, I got big fans and small fans and mini fans and all kinds of fans.
Friends in low places. You got them all.
Yep, and I'm not big on social graces, folks. Let me tell you. Ah, so then on the the wings of the game on the that monumental moment, Queen gets the opportunity to do something fun. They break away from the studio and they're given an opportunity to participate in a movie.
Uh-huh.
Not only doing all the soundtrack, but actually starring in the movie in an acting capacity, which was quite an opportunity for them. But of course, we know that movie was the movie Flash.
Yes. And they did not get to play Flash Gordon,
They did not.
but they were in the movie,
They were
which
in the
is an
movie.
interesting fact.
It is an interesting fact.
The theme, the Flash's theme, great song.
Yeah.
I mean, but are there any other standouts on there?
You know what? It's been years since I put my ears to that soundtrack. I have it somewhere in my music archives, but in the midst of moving and maneuvering through different geographical changes in my life, I haven't had the chance to devote much listening time. So I know there's a few other interesting tracks in there, but Flash was the one. It hit 10 in the UK, 42 in the States. So it did get airplay, it got exposure. It gave the band an opportunity to break away from, something, that they're used to and adventure into something new.
And I don't know why I'm hearing Flash in my head right now, and then I'm also hearing Invisible Man too, which I don't know if they
Oh,
tie together, maybe musically, but
you know what? I having appreciated and loved that song a great deal. I can
maybe,
see, I
maybe
can
I'm
see,
maybe I'm
yeah.
seeing a TV episode, Flash versus the Invisible Man or something. I don't know.
Which the Invisible Man will come up as we get to the Queen album that closes out the decade. But yes,
Yes,
and
yes.
and I would remiss to say another killer John Deacon bass line in that song, which we will
Mm-hmm.
explore a little further, and the music video that accompanied it, because Queen really went to a whole nother level with the music video in the latter part of the decade. So, but
Right.
to swing back around to going from Flash, now the band kind of ventures into a little bit of a different territory, and it kind of parallels Freddie Mercury's exploration into his own hedonistic kind of way of living and grooving and his personal life. And, you know, there was kind of a little bit of a shift in the band as far as, shall we say, creative bent and focus. And yet, in the midst of the follow up album, Hot Space, there were certainly tracks that had an embodiment of the Queen sound because they are still a band. But I know that the circumstances around the recording is a little infamous because they took up the studio inside, at the bottom of like um, a skyscraper in some country. I can't recall where it was recorded, but apparently it was a building that had some infamous, you know, things attached to it, people jumping off the building and doing all kinds of
Wow.
unfortunate things. But it was in that location where this album was made, and it wasn't a flop by any means. It had the two songs that were released, Body Language being the one, actually got some really positive feedback in the States. It went to number 11. It didn't do, interestingly enough, as well over in the UK, but of course on that album too was definitely a milestone song that kind of happened out of just total serendipity, collaboration, and musical, you know, just magnificence. And
Yeah,
that,
it
of
makes you
course,
gives you a
is
loss of words under pressure.
yeah,
You
under
were under
pressure.
pressure to think of an adjective to define how you were feeling.
Yeah. And right off the bat, once again, we keep John Deacon's name keeps popping up
Right.
in references here. But once again,
The
I mean,
underrated bass player.
you think
Those
about it.
bassists, I'm a bassist. I get no respect.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, once again, the moment you hear that bass line, you're like, you're sucked right in.
Yeah. Yeah. And that song has kind of grown over the years, especially in recent years since the passing of David Bowie.
Yeah.
I think that song just exploded over the past 10 years. And I personally, I don't know the numbers on it, but I think it's probably more popular now than it was when it came out in the 80s for sure.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, because it went to number one in the UK. So it definitely
Mm-hmm.
it had a great market there.
Yeah.
Got to 29 here in the States. But yeah, Bowie kind of met Queen and they got in the studio and they were just kind of knocking around and came this amazing, collaboration that really, I think it really showed just a great, I don't know, a spirit of collaboration. Is about all I could say about
Yeah.
it.
Collaboration made in heaven.
Yeah, for sure.
It'd be interesting to do a side study on, their friendship, relationship, if they've collaborated or tried to collaborate before, previously, or since then. After that, I don't know any of those facts,
Yeah,
but it would be interesting to research that because, it came together in one shot. As far as I'm concerned, that song everything just worked, clicked, and it
it did.
still resonates.
It did, and it really showcased both Freddie and David.
Yep.
And it gave, it certainly gave the band once again another opportunity to explore something different, which I think that's kind of neat because after you've come off performing a soundtrack and now you're collaborating with another artist, and it's like Queen was taking full advantage of their star power where they could take liberties and creative risks and still reap the results of successful music.
So then we move on to another album, which I think is kind of a defining album also. It's probably,
Yes.
I would say, top 3, top 5 easily Queen album.
Yes.
And now you're getting into the heyday of the 80s, 1984, and the album's called The Works.
Oh, incredible album. Absolutely incredible. And really a return to form, I think. I think after Hot Space not quite performing
Yeah.
to the level, that
Little hiccup.
yeah, I would think so. I think that's fair.
Little hiccup with one immaculate song on it. Well,
Yeah,
2, but
because
one really good song.
yeah. And the album did gain gold, and it was,
Mm-hmm.
a gold album as well as Flash. Once you get to the Works, it was like the band just was able to rediscover
Yeah, they were
their
rocking again.
roots. They're rocking again.
Yeah.
And here once again now we get the chance to see the band tap back into, more of their music video making ability, which of course, we really didn't talk about too much on the other efforts in the 80s, but Crazy Little Thing Called Love was certainly a popular music video,
It was.
and it was Freddie, decked out in his,
Trying to
you
look like
know,
Fonzie.
yeah, Fonzie or Elvis from the '68 comeback special,
Yeah.
but definitely decked out in that full leather outfit, top to bottom, with the slick hair, and really attempting to bring that rock and roll kind of feel. And of course, there's a funny little side note that I'm just thinking about now that may reference that moment in the video where the hands are out of the stage
Mm-hmm.
doing the clapping. Apparently, those were Queen fans who were trying very, very hard to stay in tune because apparently they had partaken of a little too much of a certain type of beverage that was impairing their ability to stay in time, but they somehow managed. But that's kind of a funny little side story that I read years ago that I had to laugh about.
Yeah, I did notice the timing was off just a slight bit, but that's okay.
So now we move now into hot to the works, and now we have a band that's going full throttle back into the music video vein. And
Mhm.
of course, you can't talk about the works without talking about what honestly would be considered one of their most iconic and memorable songs from a music video standpoint, as well as just a commercial standpoint. And that, of course, that song is Radio Gaga.
Clap, clap.
Yeah. And once again, that interactive side of Queen, which
Yeah.
of course we'll talk more about as we get to their Live Aid performance, but it was, the band exploring the idea of incorporating a music video, and then the pure genius of using the backdrop of Fritz Lang's Metropolis for, the music video, and
Mhm.
the band kind of going along in this, futuristic vehicle and weaving in this interesting metaphor of radio against the backdrop of a modern industrialized society. Positive genius, whoever
Yeah.
was behind the brain, you know, process of that. I mean, true, just creative genius.
Going back to, Radio Gaga, you know, I think of Live Aid, other concerts where the crowd is just uber involved with that particular song and others, but that particular song kind of defines what Queen was trying to do, you know, every step of the way. And you talked about Brian May, saying how he wanted to get the fans involved and make them feel it. And basically, what they're doing is making the fans, whether you're at the concert or you buy an album or listen on the radio, you're clapping in the car too, whatever the case may be. You're making those fans feel like they're part of the band by
Yes.
getting that involved. And they're going to stick by your side whether you have a bum album or not. It doesn't matter. Or whether you have a bad song or you know, just throughout the years, your fan base is just going to stick with you. And even now, when they're not the same Queen that they used to be, but they're still out there doing it, they still have fan support.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's just on and on and on because they early on they got the fans involved and made them feel ownership with the band.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, hands down. And that's a sign of a good band that recognizes its audience and gives ultimately what the audience wants. I mean, obviously different musical styles, you obviously would expect, a more, refined audience for something classical. But when you're talking about a band like Queen, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get power, you're going to get the personification of musical magnificence, and you're going to get an interactive experience that sucks you in and keeps you there until you are truly spent. And you walk away, totally exhausted, but utterly satisfied and wanting more. And that's what a good performance does. I mean, I think that's why the great performers, no matter what phase of life they were in, no matter what state of health they were in, like Elvis, it wouldn't matter. People wanted to go see Elvis because they knew they were going to see a show that, where they're interacting with, a
Yeah,
guy
he would.
who lived to perform.
Yeah, and he would talk to the audience and if he made a mistake, he would call himself out on stage and talk about the mistake he made and make the
Yeah.
audience laugh and he would be involved. And, there's bands today that do that a little bit. I can
Yeah.
think of, um, I don't know if anyone's a fan of U2 or not out there. I am, especially older U2, but they're really good at being involved with their fans at their concerts. Billy Joel, when I just recently saw him a few years ago or so, it was I don't remember how long ago it was. It was a few years ago, a number of years ago. Um, he was super involved with the crowd, telling stories, making fun of himself. Getting older, getting a little pudgier, saying he looks like Darth Vader when he took the mask off, kind of thing. I thought that was hilarious. But when you get the fans involved and you're telling stories and you're talking to them and not pretending like you're behind a glass wall on stage and nobody's there,
Right.
which a lot of people do, and that just annoys me when I go to see them live because it's just a pet peeve of mine. That's why you come to see them live. But Queen was the best at it, getting the
Yeah.
fans involved.
Well, yeah. And I mean, it goes back to a wonderful statement that the great Carole King said many years ago when she talked about, an artist or a musician being open, naked, and vulnerable. And she's like, "Oh, you've got to be open, naked, and vulnerable. Otherwise, it's not art." And I mean, when you put
Yep.
yourself out there, when the canvas of your musical soul is being exposed, when your creative expression is being put out there, you're putting it out there because you're counting on your consumer, your audience, your fan base to accept it, appreciate it, and then ultimately express it back.
That's how you grow. That's how you grow as
Yeah,
an artist. My wife's in the wine business, and some of the best grapes are the grapes that have to struggle, the grapes that have to freeze in the winter and get super hot in the sun, and you know starve for liquid and suck the moisture and the best of what the soil has to offer, and that's what bands have to do. You got to put yourself out there. You got to, if you make a mistake or um, just acknowledge that you're human and you're a band and you're just playing music and you love to do it, and the fans will appreciate that and support you all the way.
absolutely, absolutely. But doing what a great analogy about the grapes and the wine. It's so true.
Yeah, and
I mean,
it's,
it's
I
a
mean, music's an art too, and like Carole King said, you got to put yourself out there. It is an art, and that's how you express yourself. And if you filter yourself, you're not giving your true self, and you're not going to be able to grow musically or creatively at all.
No, no, because putting up that facade means, I'm above you, I'm not in need of you, so why am I even here? It's
Right.
like, what's your motive? What's your approach? And for Queen, they knew that,
Yeah.
their very existence was because of the fans. The fans that responded to an absolute inconceivable 7-minute song on the radio and responding with such overwhelming excitement and approval and jubilation that says, "Oh, we've never heard anything like this. We want to hear more."
Yep.
And you know, putting yourself out there is the reason why artists do what they do.
Yeah, I think it's because they started as humble guys and they grew together musically and learned from each other and learned how to play with each other. And then when Freddie
Yes.
came along, he just added to what was already there. And yeah, he was a little more eccentric than the rest of the guys, but
Oh, no doubt.
I just think they all came from humble households and beginnings, and they weren't full of themselves and knew how to give back to the fans and get them involved and make it all one big family.
Yeah, and be able to do something together over the top and campy and be totally comfortable with it, as in the case of another landmark song, Off the Works, as we segue and use it as a springboard into the most over the top and funniest and certainly at least in the States,
I'm looking at the song list and I'm
controversial.
like, what's he talking about? And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I know what he's talking about.
Yes. Do you want to break free? I do. And of course they chose a interesting UK, comedy show that TV sitcom show, and it was designed to invoke something humorous for the local folks, but unfortunately the censors in America didn't get the joke. They didn't get the memo.
No. All I know is I can't vacuum the floor anymore without hearing that song in my head.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when I try to do push-ups, and the keyword is try to do push-ups. All I hear is the Stripes song in my head.
Oh God, yes,
Trying to do his,
absolutely.
I think it was 10 push-ups.
Something like that. It was 10, then it was 20,
Yeah.
and it was 50.
Yeah. It's, certain songs stick in your head, and that was definitely one of them, and it
Oh
was
my
because of the
goodness.
music video.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a
Right.
doubt. And it was a song that I only became aware of many years later because, for me, Queen was a continual unfolding over the course of my life, because it was like after the works, or no, I mean after the game, there was a period of time where I didn't hear too much about Queen, really just because I was going along in life and we didn't have the comforts and the accessibility of the internet in the 1980s. And because Queen was more global and not engaged in the US market because of those types of moments with "I Wanna Break Free" kind of
Right.
being censored off MTV. It kinda left a bad taste in Freddie's mouth.
Right.
And he was just kind of growing tired of the crowds that were not as interactive and excited, I think, about what the band was bringing to the live performances here in America. So Queen found it more, you know, lucrative and just more convenient to go to the markets around the world that were much more excited about them coming.
Right.
And because of that, we were kind of I was out of the loop with a lot of what
Yeah.
Queen was doing.
Now, I was out of the loop too, but for other reasons because, and I have to ask you also, I didn't have, cable television until 1988. And you being, and everyone has heard we're from Chicago if you don't know, but you were in a suburb of Chicago. So you had a different TV provider. So when did you have cable and when did you
We
have MTV?
We actually got growing up in Dalton, which interestingly enough, I grew up 2 blocks away from the future pope, which
Yep.
was kind of a neat little thing,
Yep.
not knowing, as I was trick-or-treating at his parents' house and going door to door with stationery when I was a younger boy, that this couple that would come to the door and, greet me raised a young man who at the time when we moved into Dalton when I was just 2, he was already like 19. So he was already, ready to head off to college at that point.
Right.
But yeah, but in the town I lived in, we got our Continental Cablevision in 1985.
We didn't get cable being in city limits. At least my household didn't get cable until 1988. So all of my MTV experiences before then were in the summertime when we would visit my cousin, my aunt, and uncle up in Lansing, Michigan, and they had MTV from day one. So I got to see all the original videos and just sat and parked myself in front of the TV when we weren't outside. Um, and
Yeah.
just seeing all of those, and I know I'm sure I've seen "I Want to Break Free" and I've seen numerous Queen videos, crazy little thing called Love, and all the standards. So that's how I got my cable.
Oh, nice. Yeah, and in '85, of course, you had Money for Nothing by the Dire Straits. You
Yep.
had, Shout and Everybody Wants to Rule the World and Head Over Heels by Tears for Fears, Walk of Life, Dire Straits,
Hmm.
Wham's Make It Big album was big that year. Everything She Wants, Wake Me Up Before You Go. I mean, just all of those landmark songs from '85 were blaring off the TV. And I was, being exposed to that. Of course, the old videos that would be popping up. So I got the chance to catch up in a very short time on the world of the music video as a 13-year-old, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So getting back to the works, unless you have more to say about the video world, but I'm sure we'll have more to talk about as we move on too.
Oh yeah.
Um, a lot of other good rockers on there.
Oh,
Hammer to Fall.
oh,
They dropped a
absolutely.
hammer with that one for sure.
They sure did. And what I love about the studio version of Hammer to Fall compared to the music video, there is an extended solo by Brian May that usually doesn't make its way into live performances or the video itself, but there's a whole nother part of Brian May's blistering guitar work in that song, as
Hmm.
well as Roger Taylor's amazing drums. It's kind of like a little extended video, a little extended solo that leads into the standard solo, another juggernaut. It shows the band in all of its explosive, creative rock sensibility. I mean, just positively just
Yeah,
a headbanger.
exactly. And so is Tear It Up, another headbanger.
Oh,
They tear that one
absolutely.
up.
Yeah, I mean, and that started the album.
Yep.
So, you go right into the band literally tearing it up and bringing us into, you know, an album that's a chock full of good songs. I mean, It's a Hard Life,
Great song.
Keep Passing Through the Open Windows,
Hmm.
um, Is This the World We Created? I Go Crazy. I mean, there's just, Man on the Prowl, which, interestingly enough, if you listen to it, it almost harkens back to the same rockabilly, crazy little thing called Love, groove. It
Mhm.
starts with this little Roger Taylor drum introduction, and it rolls into this rollicking piano.
Yep.
And Freddie singing again, kind of like in the vein of Crazy Little Thing Called Love with a yeah, yeah. You hear that in the background. I mean, it's a great little song that just grows on you, just get drawn right into it. So a magnificent, little musical number. There was a lot of oddities going on with music in the 1980s because you had all of these different musical styles that were happening. You had new wave, you had punk, you had rock, you had pop, you had soul, you had funk. You just had so many different
Yeah.
styles at the time.
So many new genres popping up, so many old artists crossing over into these new genres, trying to
Yeah.
feel their way through the 80s. It was definitely a cornucopia of music and a lot of things going on. And, Queen, ever changing, was trying to find their way, also, just trying to adapt with the times and, still stay relevant and not, you know, I don't know if they were trying to focus specifically on the United States and trying to get more attention there. But um, being 1985, being Ronald Reagan in the White House, very conservative time. I don't think I want to break free was a way to break into the United States the right way.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, it's so funny that in the world of music and that whole uneasy musical expression, it's funny that the resistance came from both parties. Because
Yes.
when congressional committees were formed, they were formed by Tipper Gore, the wife
Mhm.
of Al Gore, a Democrat. So it was like both
Right.
Democrats and Republicans were both kind of like expressing their concern about musical expression. And of course, we know that hit other, bands of the 80s. Styx dedicated a whole album in 1983 called Kilroy Was Here, where Dennis DeYoung was literally taking that whole concept of musical expression and taking it to a whole nother level in, this depiction of an Orwellian society that would outlaw rock music, and a charismatic figure would eradicate it from society. And it's just, you kind of look at the what he was doing. He was speaking of what I think a lot of artists were addressing at the time. He didn't necessarily have his bandmates on board, but looking now back at it now, a whole generation, and seeing where we've come as a society with free speech and censorship and expression, it's like, he was on
Yep.
the pulse of something in those days.
Yeah. Not to get off the rails, but a true concept album, which they were oozing concept albums back in those days, and
They
you
sure
don't
were.
get too many of those anymore.
No, you really, really don't. You really don't. But an interesting time for music, and Queen was like all the other bands trying to navigate through. And it seemed like the works gained some recognition in the States, but I Want to Break Free kind of threw a wrench in the American market just a bit.
Yeah, and Freddie was ever changing and wanted to do new things, and I think consistently changing your musical direction was maybe a little too confusing for us over here on this side of the pond.
Yeah, without a doubt. But now an opportunity to take the stage in a concert appearance and performance that would catapult them, not only with a whole new level of recognition and visibility, but inspired them to go back into the studio and do something even more landmark. But before we go to that, let's talk about that 20 minutes of music immortality, the event that was seen all around the world to millions and millions was, of course, Live Aid.
Yeah, huge concert of its time, and everyone was basically an opening act for Phil Collins because he tried to take that whole thing over, playing in England and in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But Queen's performance, definitely the outstanding performance of both concerts, both sides. I think that's probably the top performance. of Live Aid as a whole.
Oh,
I don't know
without
if
a
you
doubt.
agree. Yeah.
Oh, I would agree wholeheartedly. And and of course we learned years later that somebody threw the sound of the amps up a bit and kind of gave Queen a little bit of an edge. But I really don't think they needed it because I mean I've watched the other performances in the UK and some of them were good. I mean the
Mhm.
Dire Straits, they put on a great show. They put on a great show. There were other bands that were certainly respectable and they certainly did some good stuff over in Philadelphia. There were certainly good performances, but the moment Queen took the stage, it was they were home in front of the home
Home field
audience,
advantage.
home
Yep.
field advantage, Wembley Stadium, 80, 90,000 fans who
Yeah.
were just thrilled as thrilled could be to watch one of their favorites take the stage. And and the energy that they generated right out of the gate was perfect. And I mean, Freddie takes the piano and tunes it and then rolls right into the piano element of Bohemian Rhapsody. And right from that moment it's like, here we go, 80,000 people singing in unison to Freddie, and he's got the audience already and he's barely saying the first verse.
I wonder, looking back on that, if you ask any of the band members if they remember any of it, because yeah, it was such a high emotion event that I'm sure it was just a flash, no pun intended, but a flash just from start to finish, because it was high energy for sure. And the fans, 80, 90,000, I don't know the count, the
Yeah.
fans were their fuel. So
Oh, without
I
a
mean, they
doubt.
couldn't have been in a better place, better time, better set list. I mean, it was
Oh
great
yeah.
all around. Yeah.
Yeah, because they go right from the little part of Bohemian Rhapsody, and then here goes Brian, just rolling that guitar little riff to take us right into. Freddie grabs his trademark microphone stand, and off he goes.
Uh-huh.
And the drums are pounding, and the music is blaring over the sound system, and you know what's going to happen next. They're rolling right into the interactive song of the day, Radio Gaga, and
Yep.
I don't know, like the leader of the free world, Freddie standing up there saying everybody, and he's got the whole Wembley Stadium in unison clapping away to Radio Gaga as he leads them in. And then that song ends to a thunderous ovation, and then just when you think what's coming next, then all of a sudden, here Freddie goes right back in. Oh! And he's got Wembley Stadium right in his hands again, just taking them on. And they're just in unison responding. And, and again, another moment where Freddie's owning the stage, he's owning the moment. He's got all of Wembley Stadium in unison, captivated and caught up in the occasion. And it doesn't let up. It rolls right into Hammer to Fall. Then it rolls into a little interlude of We Will Rock You. Well, actually, no. First, Hammer to Fall, then Crazy Little Thing Called Love, then We Will Rock You, and then of course on to We Are the Champions. And I mean, what a set. And by the time he sings that last, No Time for Losers, it's like boom, we are the champions, hesitation of the world, and wham, it's like, you got goosebumps going down your back, your neck, every part of your body watching him wrap up this 20-minute set, and
Yeah.
they're gone. It's like they could get up and leave right now.
I would have.
I mean,
You
I,
couldn't top
I,
it.
I mean,
You
yeah.
couldn't
I
write
mean,
it any better.
I mean, how do you top that? And of course, they picked it perfect because when the Queen biopic, which of course we'll talk about a little later as we wrap up Queen history, they ended with that Live Aid performance to kind of
Right.
close out the movie, which, I mean, you could certainly touch on other moments in the band, but wow, you just can't beat that.
That's the quintessential positive moment in the band's history. I mean, I'm sure you didn't want to wrap that up with, Freddie Mercury dying or whatever.
No.
I think they ended it just the way it should have been ended.
Yeah. Absolutely, but it was truly the band at its apex and peak, and
Yeah.
yet, there's much more work to be done because now out of that moment, Queen goes back into the studio refreshed and reinvigorated off such an invigorating performance, and they not only endeavor to do a new album, but some of those songs were also written with an invitation to create music for the Sean Connery, Christopher Lambert movie Highlander. And so along with these songs for this album come this whole wave of songs that are incorporated into the movie. But there's also this, creative explosion that of course results in the landmark song of the album. And of course that song is One Vision.
Every time I eat fried chicken, I think of that song. I told you, there's triggers.
There is. There is. And it's funny, there's a little musical documentary that's in there showing the band down in that little studio, going along, building up the song. And there's this one moment where, Freddie's singing and he's like, it's like something about, something to tick off John Deacon, and he's like, chicken feed, baby. So it's like, and then there's another where it's like one clap, one frog, one chicken. So it's like, yeah, so there was a lot of chicken references going on in that process while they're, recording and polishing up One Vision. And of course, they're sitting there in the sound room trying to come up with the little mode of, one flesh, one bone, one true, it's like, they're trying to figure it out. And Freddie's, kind of going back and forth with Brian and John and trying. It's like, no, that sounds stupid. It's like, and then it's like, yeah, that's it. It's just that whole collaborative process where they're using each other as a soundboard in the creative process. And that was just a great thing to watch, watching guys think as they come up with lyrics that will be significant parts of the song.
Yeah, and that is a rockin' song to start off, but then as the album goes on, there's some softer, more ballad type tracks on there that are outstanding tracks.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
and I don't want to skip around, but "One Year of Love," great song.
Great song.
You can elaborate on that.
A Kind of
What's the
Magic.
other kind of magic? I'm
Who
looking at the
Wants to
track
Live
list now.
Forever?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. Who Wants to
Yeah,
Live Forever? I mean, you really can't get a more dramatic song than that one.
yeah. And, and once again, a band that is exploring its musical versatility because you have something that is symphonic and soaring and very, very different than what you would expect out of a Queen song. But of course, it's a part of that theme of what they're, incorporating into the concept of the Highlander movie. But yet,
Uh-huh.
you have something that really is magnificent. And but again, it's Freddie
Yeah.
just showing his musical chops. He can do anything.
Yeah.
It's a great song and gained some exposure in the UK. In the States, only two songs get um exposure, Kind of Magic 42 and One Vision 61, which is kind of puzzling to me because a song like One Vision should have gotten far more play. But again, I think it was because of just the shift in the market of Queen being not as involved in the States. And I think, unfortunately, the music industry in America went lockstep with that attitude where it's like, well, we'll play you, but we're not going to push you.
I think a lot of their struggle, especially in the 80s, because I think they probably were more commercially successful in the United States in the 70s, is because of that video appearance. They looked like four working class guys, maybe even getting ready to push middle age at the time. And everybody else on MTV was shiny and new and polished and, either had a lot of makeup on or had long hair or whatever the case may be. So they were more visually appealing because that was the thing at the time was music videos. So you have to be visually appealing. And I think looking like four working class guys just wasn't going to get over in the United States.
It wasn't. And then out of the Kind of Magic album, which ultimately was a #1 album in the UK. So Queen proving that outside America, they are still, in demand. And what follows, of course, was Queen's most ambitious tour. At that moment, it was like it was obvious that they needed a break, and they ultimately did get a break. Freddie did his
A few
solo
years, right?
album. Yeah, a few years, couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And of course, it was an interesting time for the band also, because I mean, they were all kind of doing their own thing for a couple of years. Freddie did his solo album, then he got
Right.
together with Montserrat and did the did the
Mhm.
did the incredible opera project that was, he talked about it being just this amazing, incredible experience, and Montserrat felt the same. I mean, it was just you know, it was, but it also was coinciding with, the awareness of what Freddie was dealing with in his personal health life, which segues into getting together with the band and pretty much, while not saying it specifically, but his words to the band was his look. I know
Right.
you guys know what's going on. You know what I'm going through. I don't want to talk about it. I just want to make music while I'm still able to.
Right. And during that time, I think it was actually probably during that time is when he was diagnosed, during that break, but didn't really publicly acknowledge it until, um,
The
I think it
night
was like
before he died.
91. Yeah,
Yeah,
91,
the
right
yeah, the
before he
night the
died.
yeah, the night before he
Yeah.
died, he finally went
Which
and told the world.
on the next album, on the Miracle, if you look at the album cover, you can kind of visually see for the first time a change in his appearance. So
Yeah,
you
well,
kind of knew it was something was going on, but
he lost the mustache, which was kind of, okay, we
mhm.
saw Freddie without a mustache for many years in the '70s, but he also
Yeah,
had long hair.
right.
And, so there was definitely something that was noticeable, and it was noticeable when they were honored, in 1990 at an event in the UK. He took to the stage, and you could tell he had definitely had lost some weight at that point. And he didn't say much, and so that kind of initially sparked the questions. And of course, too, at the time when the Miracle ultimately did come out in 1989, the the subsequent interviews, anything that had to do with the publicity of the album, looking back at it now in hindsight, it was all done by Brian and Roger. Freddie was not involved. Now there was a interview that I did listen to right at the time that the Miracle was released. He was on one of the popular radio programs in the UK right as they released the Miracle, and Freddie actually did interview with the band, but it's the only interview that I found at the time, and they were able to skate around any of the, anything that was controversial or what was being, not talked about at the time. But I mean, it was Freddie sounding like Freddie. There wasn't anything that was tipping off, anything odd. He was talking about the album and of course the Miracle. I remember watching MTV and then playing I Want It All, the first and only track that was released here in the States. And I was absolutely blown away by it. I was like, okay, I haven't heard anything new from Queen since the game. They're sounding great. Brian May is wailing away on the guitar. It's like Freddie's sounding great. I
Yeah,
mean,
sounds like they went back 6, 7, 8 years in time.
yeah.
It was definitely a
So,
great track. And Freddie was making sure you couldn't tell anything was going on the album. Like he sounded just like his old self,
yeah, I
strong as
mean,
ever.
I mean, you look back and you listen now to the Miracle and think about it. You can maybe pick certain elements up that said, okay, maybe the projection of the voice is maybe not as full range or full bodied, you know, but there isn't anything in the musical delivery that shows that he's lacking. At least not anything that, initially or even now that says, okay, now as you get a little further into the following album, which we'll touch on in a bit, we can start hearing
Yeah.
some, you know, elements of deterioration. But no, I mean, the when I heard I Want It All, I immediately went out and I bought the little cassette single that had the B-side was a song called Hang On In There, which has now since been released on the box set of The Miracle, which has pretty much everything that they did in the recording process. A lot of tracks that never saw the light of day, a lot of demos and various things that pertain to that album, but an extremely a fun album. And I mean, you know, the album opens up to the sound of the drums banging away, and it's, you know, a song called Party, and it's high energy, and it's Freddie just, you know, Freddie's voice booming right out with these, you know, blended harmonies of his voice joining in, and you know, just it's rolling right away. But yeah, but from that, you had of course the title track, a fabulous song. And of course, what we learned years later, which again, because MTV wasn't really heavily involved in anything after I Want It All, that album contained a tremendous amount of music videos. You had I Want It All, you had The Miracle, you had Scandal, you had The Invisible Man, you had an album that was filled with music videos. Breakthrough, there was 5 videos altogether, and I did see Breakthrough debuted on one of, like, I think it was like maybe Friday Night Videos, and I was so excited to find Queen's new video, and I'm like, okay, this is cool. And I think it was at that moment that I probably did make the decision to go buy the album, because I actually heard a second track.
Yeah, so many, I'm looking at the track list here, and, you know, that first half is just nonstop hits, and like you mentioned, you have Flash Gordon's nemesis, The Invisible Man, on there, which
Yeah, and we can
is a
certainly talk
catchy
about.
little tune.
Oh yeah, and again, you know, another great little bass singing there. You know,
Yep.
you got Brian May's voice going. You know, I'm the Invisible Man, bam. And then you hear these drums. Then it's like John Deacon wailing away with another virtuoso bass track. It's like, come on, John. I mean, the man doesn't miss.
Yeah, showing no signs of slowing down, that's for sure.
Yeah. And I think too, I think the great way to end that album was this very biographical, introspective song that they ended with called Was It All Worth It? Where Freddie really sings his life to the public on vinyl. He talks about, you know, living, breathing rock and roll, this godforsaken life. Was it all worth it? And he talks about everywhere they've been, the things that they've done. And, you know, and it's this song where I think he was really inspired to put something of his life on vinyl, knowing that there was, you know, a closing of the show coming soon, despite the fact that the show must go on, as we'll, you know, explore with the next album. But he, you know, has a moment where in that song, he answers the question and says, it was a worthwhile experience. And then he rolls into, no, it was worth it. It's like just belts it out with all the gusto that you would know out of Freddie Mercury. He was letting the whole world know that no matter what is going to happen to his life going forward, this life that he has lived was totally worth it from start one, from opening curtain to closing act and the curtain falling. There was no hesitation that he's going out with a clear, defining answer that
Yep.
there's not a single bit of regret of
Nope.
what he's done.
And he's going full speed ahead. And while he's doing it, he's, like, as you mentioned, he's starting to get a bit retrospective on his life and putting that into his songwriting, and into his, you know, his stage, not his stage performances, but his vocal performances, and does so moving on into the next album, which is Innuendo. I have a few standouts. I mean, there's probably 4 amazing songs on there, and the rest are also really good songs, but I have about 3. You know, the title track is a standout for me, and then I have The Show Must Go On,
Oh
definitely
yeah.
is.
Yes.
And then the funny Funny-ish song, I'm going slightly mad.
Yes,
It's just a
absolutely.
crazy song, but you gotta love that song. And it's true for most of us. We're all going
Yeah,
slightly mad, so
yeah, and the video too. Freddie kind
yep.
of dressing up, trying to downplay the more visible effects of what's going on with his health. So, doing up some makeup with a little bit of a bigger hair, kind of camping up, the kind of tongue in cheek, very, very witty lyrics, I'm one wave short of a shipwreck. I'm not my usual top hilly. I mean, this kettle is boiling over. I think I'm in another tree. I mean, some really funny lyrics that are underscoring this man who is going slightly mad.
Well, it was bound to happen, and it finally did.
Also, some other great songs on that album that I love. There's a song called "The Hitman," which is positively a head banging rocker.
Uh-huh.
Goes right into this guitar riff, and Freddie just cutting loose. It doesn't matter what's going on with his health. He's banging out this song like it's his last song, and he's just not letting anything go. But yeah, an album that we certainly didn't realize what was happening. And then, of course, you know, the song that, winds up being I don't know, Freddie's, you could say, swan song.
Swan song, yeah.
And of course, it was the one where he bared his physical being like no artist could. And these are the days of our lives.
Yep.
You look at him standing in front of that camera, literally dying before our eyes. And there is this talk about open, naked, and vulnerable. I mean, if I ever was faced with a debilitating disease that, you know, decimated my body to that degree that the AIDS virus did to Freddie, I don't know if I would have that kind of courage and that kind of willingness to stand up there knowing that I am hurting and suffering. And yet you watch the making of that video, and he's, as like with every project he ever undertook, he was a professional to the very, very end. The man was just absolutely tireless and dedicated to his craft and to his art to the point of suffering. And it wasn't a suffering that says, look at me, have sympathy on me. No, it was his commitment to the craft, his commitment to the art, his commitment to the fans, and the commitment to his own musical soul that says, this is in me, and I want to put the very best of me out there, regardless that the best of me is technically, in a physical sense, long gone. But
Right.
here I am, makeup on, and I'm just giving it every last ounce of energy I can give. And the proof's in the pudding. And it was
Yeah.
a lyric that Roger Taylor had written, but Freddie was able to incorporate himself into that song. And wow, you listen to it, and you know if you don't have the kind of emotional reaction that I am having right now, you may want to check your heart. You may want to check your soul and say, have you hardened yourself to the struggle of humanity that you can't see that and say, wow, how gloriously tragic and beautiful at the same time.
Yep.
And of course, what there's different versions of the video that were released, but the best of the versions that are out there is the one at the very end where, he, lowers his head after he says, I still love you. And then he gets up and says, I still love you. And then he does just, he just did that little thing with a hand, and off the screen he went. And it was him saying, see you later, goodbye.
Yep.
I've got to go. I've got to go. I've got to be on my way, but I still love you. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's art. It's art. It's art in its truest, most beautiful, tragic, wonderful, glorious sense. And it's why we listen to music. It's why we consume it. It's why we cherish it. It's why we enjoy it. It's why we love it. It's moments like those that don't come along very often, but when they do, and you become aware of it, you're like, wow.
All right, so let's collect ourselves here because
Yes.
now we have we've 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 reached a a point where we're gonna
Sure.
redirect.
Well, we can start with the Freddie Mercury tribute concert and then segue in.
Let's do that,
All right.
and then well, let's talk about Freddie's passing, I guess, too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he lets the world know, and then, it happens and they release Show Must Go On. And, yeah, I mean, then from there, the efforts are made to give Freddie a proper going home. And the planning of what was this amazing tribute concert, participating some of the icons of rock, then some that, worked with Freddie, knew Freddie, admired Freddie, I mean, Elton John, George Michael, Metallica, Annie Lennox, David Bowie, um, Axl Rose.
You name it.
uh, just yeah, I mean, just one whale of a concert. One whale of a concert. Well done. And all the tracks positively done with great, great flair and the band's, Freddie's bandmates sounding great. And yeah, and a great occasion to, you know, celebrate a life that was worth celebrating.
Now, I don't remember, and I might sound like a fool doing this on the podcast, but was this where, and it wouldn't be a first, is this where Metallica um, plays their version of Stone Cold Crazy for the
If
first time, or?
if my memory serves me right, I believe it is. Because I mean,
Okay.
I watched the concert many years ago, recorded it, then I borrowed it to somebody who I worked with on the school newspaper, and I never got the cassette back.
Um,
So one of those VHSs that I admired for a short time, and then borrowed out in good faith and never got it back. But it's okay. I mean, I still have a few items that I borrowed from some people too that I never gave back. So
hey, they know where it's at.
that's true.
They just got to find you.
So then we go from the tribute concert to the band trying to kind of close out that era of Freddie's life. And so they put together one last little kind of album of various isolated tracks and actually a song or two that were actually recorded, that they were in the process of recording vocal tracks for, that Freddie was actually laying down after Innuendo and before he died.
Hmm.
And most telling was the song Mother Love, in which it wound up literally being the last song he ever provided vocals for.
Huh.
And what's interesting is if you listen to it, there is a moment where Freddie goes into a second, like, just moment of the song where his voice just goes up to that high show must go on, just let it all out. And from there, he said, okay, I can't do any more today. I'll be back tomorrow to finish. And tomorrow never came. So the very last part of the song was sung by Brian May. And that was like the ultimate moment where Freddie now has left and Brian now is completing. And
Yeah,
it
and you hear the
kind of brought
separation happen.
the separation happen. And
And yeah,
really, really amazing that they were able, that it had happened that way.
yeah,
A plain line of demarcation there that was
yeah.
just like, wow, you know. but Made in Heaven, um, it actually went to 58 in America, but of course, #1 in the UK. So it was definitely a song that, or an album that definitely garnered, some interesting, two songs that were actually released in the UK. Heaven for Everyone actually finished, reached #2. A Winter's Tale, which was one of the two songs that Freddie did after Innuendo. For some reason, Mother Love was never released, but it winds up being, to me, the most emotional and the most significant song, regardless of the chart success of the other songs.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a closing for, Queen. But now, interestingly enough, I did forget, after Freddie passed away, of course, they re-released Bohemian Rhapsody as it coincided with the movie Wayne's World,
Wayne's World,
and
yeah.
and it got another chance to go out into the mainstream. And let me just make sure there, because I believe it did get released again. So let me just give it that proper. Yeah, it reached #1 in the UK and #2 in the States.
Almost.
Yeah,
Close but no
almost.
cigar.
Yeah. But Bohemian Rhapsody and These Are the Days of Our Lives together, which was appropriate because you had the very best of Queen and, the last of Queen, essentially. And perfect for an A and B side.
Now, if memory serves me and my sources are correct, that instead of Bohemian Rhapsody being in Wayne's World and re-reaching the charts again, that could have been Stairway to Heaven, but they denied Stairway in the movie.
Oh,
Now, I assume you've seen the movie, right?
yeah,
Probably a while ago.
yeah.
Or there's a part where I think it's Garth, maybe it's Wayne or one of his friends. I can't remember. They start to play Stairway to Heaven on the guitar in the music shop, and then they instantly only get the half of the first note out, and the guy that works at the guitar shop stops him and says, puts his hand on the guitar fret to stop him from playing and points at the sign that says no Stairway to Heaven. And then they
Wow.
say, Stairway denied. And I guess they couldn't, I guess either Jimmy Page wouldn't release the rights to the song to be played in the movie, or it was too expensive. One of the two. I can't remember exactly which one it was.
Yeah,
But lucky for Queen, they got the song was reborn.
yeah. And I mean, I think it's smart
Yep.
from a marketing standpoint. I think it was very smart to allow that to be put out there into the mainstream, because everybody has their standards, and Jimmy Page, you can't say Jimmy Page is necessarily wrong, but I think Brian May and the band were definitely wiser, all the more wiser, to allow that to be used, because again, you know,
A new wave
exposure
of
is
fans.
exposure.
New wave of fans.
Yeah, and I mean, now, not that any of us necessarily were immediately inclined to bang our heads, during the guitar solo, but having seen Wayne's World, we're like, that just,
Now you have to do it.
now you have to do it. So, but yeah, I mean, and again, it was, it takes you back to really, brings you back to the just who Queen as a band and Freddie as an artist was. Somebody who was so talented, so versatile, so creative, so innovative, so just musically just gifted. I mean, the superlatives that one can attach to Freddie are exhaustive. And he's somebody who, only comes along once in a generation, of if that. And when you have that person, and music only had him for 20 years, but boy, what a 20-year run for Farouk Bulsara. And then opportunities started to present themselves where they explored the idea of going on the road and performing with somebody in place of Freddie, though nobody could ever take his place, but somebody who could step in and give voice to those songs. And first they went with Paul Rogers, who was certainly not in any way a bad choice to, sing the songs of Queen, a man who has great soul and great musical sensibility, great stage presence, a leading man of Bad Company in the Firm, and, just a man who has great musical chops. And I think for the time that he was with Queen, did a fabulous job. And then on to the modern formation of Queen with the singer Adam Lambert, same thing. They're going on the road and they're playing to large crowds that are enthusiastic and excited. And Roger and Brian are able to still pay homage to Freddie through the continual playing and performing and receiving of all the great songs that he was a part of and continues to reap the benefits of.
Yeah, and I think Adam Lambert was a good choice. Definitely has the stage presence. Um, Not equaling Freddie Mercury, of course, but he knows how to work the stage, and he's got the range where he can hit the type of range Freddie could do, and um, I think it was a good choice on their part to switch it up. Younger voice, so that helps out too.
Yeah. I mean, it was necessary, I think. I think for Brian and
Yeah.
Roger, they went enough years doing their own projects, and then they missed the band. And I don't think it ever gave any disrespect to Freddie. I don't think it marginalized anything that Queen ever did. I don't think it's a discredit or a disparagement in any way. I think them going on and playing is giving tribute and giving recognition and giving voice to the songs that continue to draw more and more fans, music fans, into the band.
Well, are we there?
I think we have exhausted the volume of Queen. I think we've said all that there needs to be said today.
We've done a great job, Tony. I appreciate it once again
Well, hey,
on giving us your knowledge and your love for Queen. And we could probably do a follow-up episode on everything we missed because there's so much to talk about.
that's true. It is very true, and I'm probably somewhere in the midst of the week, I'll think of something and I'll be like, another snub of the week coming up.
So before we go, and we're gonna move along and record another episode because we're always on the
Yes.
move.
We are
But
on the move.
before we do that, I want to remind everybody to please, if you're not following us on our socials, that would be Facebook, Instagram, Twitter X, Twitter/X, TikTok, and YouTube, of course. And if you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you already know we're there. But please feel free to subscribe when you're visiting those pages. And also on Spotify and YouTube, you can listen to our music playlist for the music that coincides with every episode. And feel free to subscribe there as well. So until next time, this is Into the Runout, where the music fades.
The discussion begins.
See you on side 2.
See ya.